Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Ooh, Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Isopanishad, Sri Isopanishad, Mantra 8. There's 18 mantras. They're prayers. Glorifying the Supreme Being. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare. There is no doubt in the Isopanishad that the Supreme Being is personal, cognizant, has form, and these prayers are helping to illuminate what kind of form, what kind of person, not material. Hare Krishna. So, this is translated with commentary by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, founder Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. So the previous verses, the last few, were discussing how someone who sees a certain way has certain benefits. Like, sees everything in relation to the Lord. Sees all entities as his parts and parcels. They never have hatred for anything. They have no enemies, no hatred, no fear. Mantras are getting a little challenging. Saparya chukram akayama vranam asna viram sudam apapa vidam kavir manasi paribur swayambur yatat tat yatoritan yadhat chasvatibhya samabhya. Translation: such a person, like was described earlier, such a person must know, in fact, the greatest of all, who is unembodied, omniscient, beyond reproach, without veins, pure and uncontaminate, the self-sufficient philosopher who is awarding everyone's desire since time immemorial. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. And Prabhupada's going to help us with this. This is his purport. Here is the description of the transcendental and eternal form of the absolute personality of Godhead. The Supreme Lord is not formless. He has his own transcendental form, which is not at all similar to those of the mundane world. Living entities in this world have their forms embodied by material nature, and they work like any material machine. The physiological and anatomical structure of the body of a living being must have a mechanical construction with veins and so forth in the embodiment. But in transcendental body of the Lord, there's nothing like veins. It's clearly stated here that he is unembodied. That means there's no difference between his body and soul, nor does he accept a body by the laws of nature as we do. In the material concept of bodily life, the soul is different from the gross embodiment and subtle mind. The Supreme Lord is apart from any such compartmentalized arrangement. However, there is nothing like a difference of body and mind in the Supreme Lord. He's the complete whole. And his mind and body and he himself are all one and the same. In the Brahma Samhita, there's a similar description of the body of the Supreme Lord. He's described there as the Sat Chit Ananda Vigraha. This means he is the eternal form, fully representing transcendental existence, knowledge, and bliss. The Vedic literature states clearly he has a completely different kind of transcendental body, and thus he is sometimes described as formless. This formlessness means he has no form like ours, or that he is devoid of a form which can be perceived. In the Brahma Samhita, it is further said, the Lord can do anything and everything with any one of the parts of his body. It is said there that with each and every part of his body, such as the hand, he can do the work of the other senses. That means the Lord can walk with his hands. He can accept a thing by his legs. He can see by his hands and feet, and he can eat by his eyes. In the Shruti mantras, it is said, he has no hands and no legs like ours, but that he has a different type of hand and leg by which he can accept all that we offer him and walk faster than anyone anywhere. These things are confirmed in this mantra of Isopanishad by the use of the words like omnipotent, or as some say, omnipotent. The Lord's Sri Vigraha, his worshipful form, which is installed in the temples by authorized acharyas who have realized the Lord in terms of Mantra 7, is also non-different from the original form of the Lord. Okay, so they have realized, Prabhupada's talking about himself here, they have realized this verse, Mantra 7. One who always sees all living entities as spiritual sparks, in quality one with the Lord, becomes a true knower of things. What is there as illusion or anxiety for him? So that's the verse. The Lord Sri Vigraha, his worshipful form, which is installed in the temples by authorized acharyas who have realized the Lord in terms of that verse, is also non-different from the original form, of the Lord. The original form of the Lord is that of Sri Krishna. Sri Krishna expands himself by an unlimited number of forms, like Baladev, Ram, Shinga, Varaha, etc. And all of these are one and the same personality of Godhead. Similarly, the Archa-vigraha, which is worshipped in the temples, is also an expanded form of the Lord. By worshipping the Archa-vigraha of the Lord, one can at once approach the Lord, who accepts the service of the devotee by his omnipotent energy without any reproach. The vigraha of the Lord descends by request of the acharyas, the holy teachers, and works exactly in the original way by his omnipotent energy. Hare Krishna. The acharyas who have realized this knowledge, realized the Lord and the living entities and how that is, the spiritual sparks, none different from the Lord, they are able to call the Lord to come as the Archa-vigraha. And he is there. Foolish people who have no knowledge of these mantras of Isopanishad or any other Shruti mantras consider that the Sri Vigraha who is worshipped by the pure devotee is made of material elements. To the imperfect eyes of the foolish people, or to the Kanistha Adhikaris, materialistic devotees, this form is considered material. But such people with little knowledge do not know that the Lord, being omnipotent and omniscient, can transform matter into spirit, and spirit into matter, as he desires. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord regrets the fallen condition of men with little knowledge, who regard the body of the Lord as material, because he descends like a man into this world. In that verse, Bhagavad Gita, fools deride me when I appear in my personal form. Such poorly informed persons do not know the omnipotence of the Lord. He can turn matter into spirit, and spirit into matter, at will. To the mental speculators, therefore, the Lord does not manifest himself in fullness. He can be appreciated only in proportion to one's surrender to him. And the fallen condition of the living entities is due entirely to forgetfulness of our relationship with God. In this mantra, as well as in many others in the Vedas, it is clearly mentioned. From time immemorial, the Lord is supplying. The living being, first of all, desires. Then the Lord supplies the object of desire in proportion to the degree of qualification. If a man wants to be a high court judge, he must not only have acquired necessary qualifications, but he must also depend upon the disposition of the authority concerned, who can award the title of high court judge. Similarly, acquisition of the qualifications of a high court judge is not sufficient in order to occupy the post. This must be awarded by some superior authority. Similarly, the Lord awards enjoyment to the living being in proportion to his qualifications. In other words, by the law of karma. Those qualifications, however, are not sufficient without the mercy of the Lord. Ordinarily, the living being does not know what to ask for from the Lord or what post to qualify himself for. When the living being knows his constitutional position, however, he asks to be accepted into transcendental association of the Lord in order to render transcendental loving service unto him. Instead of asking for this, a living being under the influence of material nature asks for many things, and his mentality is described in Bhagavad Gita as divided or splayed intelligence. The intelligence of those who are irresolute is many branched. Spiritual intelligence is one, but the opposite number is of many varieties. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is said that persons who are captivated by temporary beauties of the external energy forget their real aim of life, which is to go back to Godhead. Forgetting this, one tries to adjust things by various plans and programs, which are compared with the process of chewing already chewed refuse. But the Lord is so kind. He allows the forgetful living being to do so without interfering in his activities. If a living being wants to go to hell, the Lord allows him to do so without interference. And if he wants to go back home, back to Godhead, the Lord also helps him to do that. God is described here as Parabu, the greatest of all. No one's greater than or equal to him. Other living beings are described as beggars who ask from the Lord, and the Lord supplies their desirables. If other entities were equal to the Lord in potency, or if they were omnipotent or omniscient, there would be no question of begging from the Lord, even for so-called liberation. The real liberation of the living being is to go back to Godhead. Otherwise, liberation as conceived by the impersonalists remains a myth. And the begging business for sense gratification has to continue eternally, unless the beggar comes to his senses and realizes his constitutional position. The Supreme Lord is self-sufficient. When Lord Krishna appeared on earth 5,000 years ago, it wasn't a material body, because Lord Krishna can turn spirit into matter and matter into spirit. So to the foolish, it looked like a material body, but it's not. It's like the deities in the temple. They look like they're made out of stone or marble or wood or something. But they're completely spiritual, because Krishna's there. So when Lord Krishna appeared on the earth 5,000 years ago, he displayed the full manifestation of Godhead by his various activities. In his childhood, he killed many powerful demons, and there was no question of acquiring such power by any extraneous endeavor. He lifted Govardhan Hill without any practice of weightlifting. He danced with the gopis without any social restriction and without any reproach. Although the gopis approached him with feelings of amorous love, the mixing of the gopis and Lord Krishna has been worshipped even by Lord Chaitanya, who was a strict sannyasi and rigid follower of disciplinary regulations. To confirm this, Sri Isopanishad says that he, Krishna, is antiseptic and prophylactic, pure and uncontaminated. He's antiseptic in the sense that even an impure thing in the estimation of the mundane world can become purified just by touching him. The word prophylactic refers to his association and is mentioned in Bhagavad Gita. There it is said that a scrupulous devotee may appear in the beginning to be Durachara, not well behaved, yet he is still to be accepted as pure because he's on the right path. That is the prophylactic nature of the Lord's association. Let's look up that word prophylactic. You usually hear it in terms of sex. So let's see. Prophylactic. Prevent disease. Prophylactic means to prevent disease. Okay. So interesting, Prabhupada uses that word prophylactic. And he's talking about Krishna dancing with the gopis. And he uses the word prophylactic. So the disease that's protected from, that the entity is protected from, is the disease of Maya, or illusion. Hare Krishna. And then he talks about, sometimes there's a devotee may appear to be durachara, not well behaved. And Prabhupada says, yet he is still to be accepted as pure because he's on the right path. That ties in with the Apichet Siddharacharo verse in Bhagavad Gita, that even the devotee who does some abominable activity, durachara, because they're on the path of surrender to Krishna, then they're still to be accepted as pure. Why is that? Because Krishna is so pure and so prophylactic that these things, that these little deviations, they're very rightly, very soon corrected because of the antiseptic and prophylactic nature of the Lord. So there, no fault finding, even if somebody is off track a bit. No fault finding. The Lord is, one should still accept him as pure, even though, oh boy, Krishna. The Lord is a papavidan, that is, nothing like sin can touch him. Even if he may do something which appears to be sinful, such actions are all good, as there's no question of the Lord's being affected by sin. Yeah, he was stealing, dancing with other men's wives. Hare Krishna. Appears to be sinful. Actions are all good. There's no question of the Lord's being affected by sin. He's not affected by sin. In all circumstances, he's Sudam, most purified, often compared to the sun. The sun extracts moisture from many untouchable places of the earth, and itself remains pure. In fact, it purifies obnoxious things by its sterilizing effect. The sun is so powerful, although only a material object, we can imagine the purity and strength of the all-powerful Lord. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Hare. That's like the swan-like devotee of the Lord. Why they say swan-like? Because the swan can extract one little drop. If there's a mixture of milk and water, he can extract, if it's just one drop of milk, he can extract that drop. So the Paramahamsa is compared to swan-like. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna.